Welcome to my Vision News. Some news stories for you. First one is from Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital, where a key meeting was held with participation of Berhano Jula, Ethiopian Field Marshal, Army Chief. Some Tigrayans participated as well, though pro-Tigray activists claim that consultation is underway for a fourth offensive on Tigray. But what we have learned, we would share with you. Secondly, a former TPLF member, EPRDF official, former defense minister, was interviewed by TMH, Tigray Media House, 2 days ago, and he demanded accountability, reforms in Tigray. Who is he? And thirdly, I want to speak a little about advocacy groups which are working mostly in the US, Europe as well, Amhara advocacy groups, Oromo advocacy groups, Tigrayan advocacy groups as well. What are they doing? Because one of these groups shared its annual report a few hours ago. These groups seem to be funded, and who is funding them? They have budgets. They try to influence the policies of US, Western countries towards Ethiopia. And most of these groups are working along ethnic lines. Firstly, viewers, a key meeting has been held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital, with participation of Berhano Jula, Ethiopian Army Chief, Ethiopian Field Marshal. Prosperity Party officials participated too. And we are now hearing from pro-Tigray activists that consultations are underway for a fourth offensive on Tigray. That is why Berhano Jula has held talks with the participants, and Tigrayans, Addis Ababa Tigrayans, pro-Ethiopian government, they also participated. Interim government which was put in place in Tigray in November 2020 till June 2021, its officials, interim government backed by Ethiopian federal government, its officials participated as well. What was the agenda of this meeting? What we have learned is that federal government is planning post-TPLF scenario, or you can say interim setup scenario, because according to Pretoria Agreement, the regional election held in Tigray before the start of November 2020 war was null and void. New regional election will be held in Tigray. Before that, interim government will be established with participation of all the key players. What we have learned is that these meetings are focusing on interim setup. Of course, elections will be held if peace deal is implemented. And Prosperity Party, Ethiopian National Defense Force, they will back some groups in Tigray. PP will try to emerge as a main political force in Tigray. Can it happen? That remains to be seen. Because so far, TPLF is the most important political force in Tigray. Then small parties are there like Betona, Salsivujene, and TIP. PP wants to have its presence in Tigray, in Mekelle. That is why these meetings are underway. In interim setup and in regional election, PP wants its role in Tigray. And we know that Tigray regional government also formed an 11-member committee 2 days ago. Around 24 hours ago, two diaspora members, one from opposition parties, and 9 other members who will monitor the implementation of peace process. So I personally think what I have learned is that Ethiopian federal government is trying to create a political force in Mekelle to counter TPLF. That is why these meetings are underway in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital. Secondly, viewers, TMH interviewed a former TPLF official, I think 2 days ago. That official demanded accountability and reforms in Tigray. CA Abraha is the name of this man who worked as Ethiopian defense minister, I think when EPRD was in power. He was arrested in 2002 on charges of corruption because he had developed some differences with TPLF leadership. Later, he left Ethiopia. He is not in Ethiopia now, I think. He has shared his concerns about the way Tigray regional government is being run. He is demanding accountability, democratic reforms in Tigray, financial transparency in Tigray. In his interview, he said that transactions, contributions from abroad to Tigray government should be transparent. Reforms should be made to ensure the participation of people in policy making, in decision making. He is demanding change in Tigray. He said that people cannot be deceived now. TPLF will have to make reforms in Tigray. Can it happen? That remains to be seen. But this development shows that there are voices in Tigray, outside Tigray, especially among diaspora, which want change in Tigray. Political change. It's not that they want the war to continue, though some do support they oppose dismantling of TDF. But they want change in Tigray. And they are not against TPLF. We cannot say they are against TPLF. But they want more democratic regional government in Tigray. TPLF has been taking solo flights. It has been making unilateral decisions in the past. It formed 11-member committee yesterday after signing of agreements in Pretoria and Nairobi, Kenya. So that is why questions are being raised. Will TPLF listen to these demands? And thirdly, a few words on advocacy groups. Ethiopian advocacy groups operating in US mainly, in Europe as well. There are some Amhara advocacy groups, Tigray advocacy groups, Oromo advocacy groups as well, which have budgets. People fund them. And they're working along ethnic lines. Amhara Association of America today shared its annual report. In the last 1 year, AAA, Amhara Association of America, held meetings with 34 US congressmen, including some US State Department officials too, apart from congressmen. It held meetings with US State Department officials too. And it spent $60,000 US on lobbying. So AAA has confirmed that it is spending thousands of dollars on lobbying. We know that AAA was working in collaboration with Ethiopian federal government last year when TPLF, when Tigray fighters were in Amhara far regions. Back then, these ethnic Amhara advocacy groups were working in collaboration with federalist forces, and their protests were against TPLF. Then TPLF and Ethiopian federal government reached a truce in March this year, and federal government of Ethiopia launched a crackdown on Amhara Fano militia and some journalists, activists in the Amhara region. After that, we saw that AA turned against Ethiopian federal government. Since then, AAA has been working to remove PM Abiy from office, to put an end to alleged genocide of ethnic Amharas in Ethiopia. So these Ethiopian advocacy groups are funded. They do lobbying as well. They have budgets. And conflicts suit them. If conflicts come to a close, how will these advocacy groups survive? They profit from conflicts. So that is why I'm not saying that all Tigrayan, Oromo, Amhara, diaspora community members, all organizations are fueling conflicts, but some are fueling conflicts because their livelihoods depend upon these conflicts. They are admitting, they're lobbying, they're spending money on US lawmakers, US congressmen, and it's legal in the US. But it is having its impact in Ethiopia. Ethiopia needs unity among Ethiopians living inside Ethiopia, outside Ethiopia as well. But these advocacy groups, they have their own agendas as well. They have their own handlers too, who want them to work for specific objectives, which sometimes could lead to escalation of ethnic tensions in Ethiopia.